Hi, how are you doing? Kumusta ka naman? So, for today's episode, we are going to talk about something that a lot of you have been asking me about. And since this October 10, this Sunday is World Mental Health Day, I decided to create this video because it's very timely. But just to give you an idea, World Mental Health Day, when I searched for it online, it's an international day for global mental health education, awareness, and advocacy against social stigma. It was first celebrated in 1992 as the initiative of the World Federation for Mental Health, a global mental health organization with members and contacts in more than 150 countries. So, the overall objective of World Mental Health Day, according to WHO, or World Health Organization, is to raise awareness of mental health issues around the world and to mobilize efforts in support of mental health. So, on October 10, that day will provide an opportunity for all stakeholders working on mental health issues to talk about their work and what more needs to be done to make mental health care a reality for people worldwide. So introduction lang yun, just because I want to let you know what's the significance of World Mental Health Day, because it's not just today that I'll be making videos about this, no, for the whole month of October, because I want to do my part in spreading awareness about this as well. So for today's video, it's going to be about some tips based on my experience, personal experiences, and how you can deal with that moment in your life wherein you're no longer motivated at work, or maybe you are stressed, or you just want to quit and say goodbye to work, but you don't know how to do that because obviously we're still in the middle of a pandemic as I'm filming this video. And it's really hard to find a job and to earn money as well. Hi, this is Rhea. You're listening to inREAlity, where we talk a lot about career, adulting, and entrepreneurship. When I was browsing Instagram stories of this person I follow online, her name is Vanessa Lau. She's an online business mentor or coach. And she shared this message from Adam Grant. It says, when we seek advice, we rarely want to be told which option to choose. We're usually seeking guidance on how to approach the decision. The best advice doesn't specify what to do. It highlights blind spots in our thinking and helps us clarify our priorities. So I wanted to preface with that kind of message because when I started making this video, I thought the title would be Advice to Everyone or Anyone Who is Demotivated, No Longer Motivated, Stressed, or Who Wants to Quit. But the reality is that I can only give you things, or I can only share things with you that I have personally experienced and how I was able to overcome those challenges when I also felt the same way as you're feeling right now. But the decision as to what specifically you need to do to overcome the challenge you have now will come from you and not from me. And I also just want to include a disclaimer that whatever I'm going to tell you is based on my personal experiences, and these things should not be taken as a substitute for medical advice. If you truly have a problem and you've been diagnosed, then it's best to go to a licensed professional who can help you in overcoming the challenges or your problems at the moment. Okay, so let's start with my first point, which is acknowledgement and self-awareness. If you see me looking down, that's because I'm also referring to my notes here. You don't know what you don't know. So you will not be able to deal with what you're going through if you don't know exactly what you're going through, right? And it might sound like a no-brainer, but you really have to start with what exactly is it that's bothering you or what makes you stressed. But you may not know it right away, but eventually you will. It's just really important that you start with knowing what causes your stress or that thing that makes you no longer motivated at work. Because, as I've mentioned, you'll only be able to overcome that if you know what you're battling. Like, you know, just like what's happening right now with COVID. When we started this, we don't really know what we are dealing with. So we had a lot of casualties, unfortunately, and there were several problems that happened because we did not know what we were dealing with. But here we are, a year, more than a year after, we at least have some data to back up what happened previously. And so at least we're better in dealing with the situation. And that's the same with what's happening to you personally. So I'll give you an industry example in case you're working in the BPO industry. But if not, the entire premise of this discussion is also applicable, whatever industry you're in. So there was a time when I was still taking calls that I was getting DSATs or failing customer satisfaction surveys. And I was wondering why that was happening. It was very uncharacteristic of me because I knew that I would always get perfect CSAT. So this is a very simple example, obviously. So I got a bit like upset or disappointed. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue working because my metrics were really, really like suffering. But I realized that I had to think of what was causing that thing to happen. So when I thought about it after my shift, it wasn't really that I wasn't paying attention to the customer just because I couldn't understand what the customer was saying. It was because of a personal issue that I was battling inside. So that was the root cause of the issue. So it bothered me a lot. And that caused me to be irritated, and I channeled it to my customers, which was not right. So there was a point wherein I probably sounded rude, which was why I got some failing surveys, and it went on for the good part of the shift. And the bad thing was that the survey did not really come in until after a few days because we were changing the survey system that time. And so I was really upset because of what I did. And so, because I knew exactly what caused me to have failing surveys, I also immediately had to work on it. I knew what I was dealing with, and it was not a mystery anymore to me. I knew that I was dealing with myself. I had to deal with my personal issues, leave those issues at home. So, in essence, it really helps for you to verbalize your stresses and challenges. What I usually do is I would write them down, I would really say them out loud and make sure that I understand where these things are coming from. Maybe you will not understand them right away, but once you think about it really well, you take some time to reflect and you really understand where your stresses are coming from. By writing them down, it's easier for you to go back to it and realize that these are the things, that you are stressing out or are worrying about instead of just like thinking about it, everything's in your head, it's confusing. But when you write them down, it's a bit clearer to you because it's already there on paper. If you're not into that, then you can speak with someone who you trust or speak with a friend or whoever. But in my case, I wasn't really very comfortable sharing my personal problem that time. So I would just write it on my journal. Then it became clearer to me. And moving on to the next point, let's just say you've already determined what stresses you out. You already know exactly what's demotivating you. Then it's time for you to determine the things that you can control and not control. Literally make a list of those things. You already know what stresses you out, right? So write them down on paper and label those things that you can control and things that you cannot control. So we are being practical and actionable here. I don't just want to tell you to believe in yourself and accept and move on because those can easily be said. But these tips that I'm sharing with you right now are actionable, meaning you can do it. You can really do something about what's going on in your life right now. So, literally make a list of everything and then label each stressor. If this is something you can control or something you cannot control, that way you'll be able to determine the things that you can work on and the things that you have to just let go because you can't control them. And I'm telling you this because most of the time, the things that stress you out are actually things that are within your control. You just don't know it at the time. But again, by writing them down, you at least get a clear um, note of whichever you can control and you cannot control. For example, I mentioned earlier the issue with my failing surveys back when I was still taking calls. That was something that I can certainly control. So I took action and did something about it because I could control it, right? And in turn, I was able to overcome it. I did not let that single thing affect me. Uh, I know a lot of you have messaged me or have left comments saying that you're pressured, you're not motivated because you're not hitting your metrics. You know, metrics are just a small part of your entire performance. Especially if you're a newbie, don't be so hard on yourself. It's definitely going to be better for you, especially if you put in the work and you're in the right environment, you have the right support system. Some examples of things that might stress you might be the one that I mentioned, your performance metrics. Maybe you had an issue with a coworker and it's really hard because you are working in the same environment. If you're working in an office, or even if you're working online, it's really hard to have conflict with a coworker. It will definitely become a stressor for you. It's either you want to avoid that person or you just completely want to get it over with. Another example wherein your account or your company's downsizing and it's possible that you might get laid off. So you have that kind of stress about something that has not happened yet, but might happen to you in the near future. And we have the stress of what we're going through right now. We have some natural disasters and obviously the pandemic. Those are things that we cannot control, right? So conflict with your coworker, performance metrics, those things you can definitely control. Downsizing of the company because maybe they're cutting costs. That is something you cannot control. I see a lot of comments in my videos saying that they got laid off because the company's cutting costs. It's not within your control, and it's understandable that you will get stressed about it because, of course, you will lose your job. Who's not going to be stressed about that, right? Remember that whenever you lose something, there's also something that will be given back to you. You just have to believe that it's going to happen. So far, we've talked about acknowledgement and self awareness and determining which stressors you can control and cannot control. The moment you already determine those things, now it's time for you to think of solutions. We're not just going to list all of our problems and stressors and just sulk, look at them until the end of the day. It's not going to solve any of your problems. It's not going to solve any of your worries. So what we're going to do next is obviously to think of solutions. How can we overcome that kind of situation? When I say solution, it may not come as a solid solution right away. Like it's not always in the form of like a right now solution. It might be something that you have to wait for a little bit longer, but at least you're working on it. You're not just letting your stressors affect you and your quality of life. So, thinking of solutions, in my case, I really stopped over apologizing. That's one of the things that I learned in my many years of working, especially in the corporate industry. Especially if I did not cause any harm. Sometimes you just make mistakes because you're human. And our initial reaction is to apologize for what happened and even over apologize, not realizing that it's not really needed. It's not the most important thing. The most important thing is you acknowledge the situation, acknowledge you make a mistake, and then, quickly act on it, resolve it, and move forward. You don't have to linger on that particular issue or situation. You might be asking, so how am I going to resolve all my issues and the things that stress me out? The thing is that I can't really answer that for you. I'm just here to guide you through the process of going through what you're going through, but I can't really tell you specifically what to do with your situation. Maybe I can in some practical situations where I've already gone through, but deep inside, you probably are not just admitting it right now, but deep inside, you know exactly how to resolve that. You probably have not like looked deeper into yourself yet, but hopefully, eventually, you'll get there. You just have to be patient with yourself. So let me tell you a bit about the most stressful thing that has happened in my career. I was still working in the BPO industry as a lead trainer, but I felt kind of dead inside at some point. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a really fun, fulfilling, and enriching experience for me, but somehow in your career, and in my case, in a span of almost 7 years, there was a point when I felt dead inside and I needed to move to something that will make me alive. But then I was already in my comfort zone. It was so easy to just be there, but I wanted to go out of that comfort zone. I just didn't know how. And then there came an opportunity to be a sales trainer that would give me, again, the opportunity to work in my hometown. So I lived in Cebu that time. I'm still living in Cebu right now. And that job opportunity would allow me to go home to my hometown for good. So what happened was I flew home to attend the interviews, the demonstrations, and everything. And my good friend and coworker back in the company referred me to this particular company. So I kind of had an advantage in that case because I was a referral. And I also truly believed that that person believed in me that I could do the job. So she referred me. And then, long story short, I got hired after, I think, flying out 2 times. Yeah, at my own expense. Okay, so I also had to shell out money for it, for the plane tickets and all those stuff. And the company was supposed to reimburse me, but I did not ask for the reimbursement anymore because I declined the job after I got hired. So, long story short, it just so happened that my husband changed his mind at the last minute when I already said yes to the job offer. So, why was it stressful for me? It's because I have already said yes to the job offer and then I had to decline it. And I was already like super, super excited to go home and to live in my hometown. And of course, I can't leave my husband and my son here. We have to be together, right? But then that happened. So it was stressful for me because I'm someone who is very committed. So if I already say yes to something, then I have to make sure that I follow through. I rarely like change my mind. If I already say yes, sometimes even if it's inconvenient for me, I would just go through with it just because I already said yes and I don't want to like break my word. So that's the thing about me. Although I did not realize it at that time. So I allowed myself to really break down and cry over it because it was so problematic for me. I was so devastated. And then after a few like days of thinking about it, I couldn't just continue crying every day. I had to go to work, I had to continue my work here. And then thinking about it now, it may sound like it's a good problem to have, or some people may think that it's the kind of problem that most privileged people have because you just got a job offer and then you can afford to decline it. Yeah, I mean, you can think about it that way, but to me, it was really, really important that I get that job. And after a few days of thinking about it, I realized that I needed to move on. I needed to just continue what I'm doing. Besides, I did not have any other job offer aside from that. I was not really actively looking for work aside from that particular job application. So eventually, when I weighed down things, I realized that the reason that stressed me out was because of that very thing about myself, wherein I did not want to disappoint people. I did not want people to be upset with me because of my decisions. And the main thing was that I did not really want to disappoint that person who referred me, most especially because I thought that if I declined that job offer after all the trouble that I went through, well, it's not really trouble, but after all the things that I went through with the job application and demonstrations and everything, interviews and all of that, you know how a job application can be, right? After all those things that I went through, then I would just say no. And I thought that it would look bad on the person who referred me. So I was really scared that my decision would affect that person who referred me and that she might look bad in the eyes of the management, which now I think that it was so silly of me to think that way because it was never her fault, obviously. She was just the person who referred me. And so that was the very thing that really stressed me out. And once I have determined that, and it's something that I could no longer control because it already happened. I mean, I have to list my priorities, and my first priority is always my family. And so I chose to stay in Cebu and continue my work here because, that was the compromise I needed to do. And that was the life I chose. I chose to live in Cebu. And then when there was an opportunity, I grabbed it. But it just so happened that the stars did not align. I couldn't control it anymore. And so I just had to let it go because if I let it drain me and just affect me every single day, I wouldn't be able to move on. And it's just not a good way to live, to have something on your shoulders every single day. And even though I said that, you have to realize that your problems and my problems are different. Everybody else's problems are different from one another. So just because mine sounds like something like a privileged person would have, doesn't mean that I did not go through like severe stress at that time, and that doesn't also mean that like I had it any better or you had it any better. You have to realize that even though for you the problem of that particular person might look small, but for that person, it's already a big problem, right? And that's actually the purpose of this shirt. It says your feelings are valid, regardless where you are from or what stage of life you're in right now, or whatever social status you have. And with that, allow me to read to you something that I've learned from this book I'm reading, and I'm going to link the book in the description if you're interested. It says why we subconsciously love to create problems for ourselves. And this is something to do with, sometimes we linger on things that we can no longer control. It says here, I think most people could objectively look at their lives and see how frequently the problems they had were of their own making. Their suffering self-inflicted. We absolutely love to make problems for ourselves, and we do it all the time. We worry needlessly, we choose immobility, we resist acceptance, we externalize our power, we surrender our ability to choose, when really it's up to us to decide how we react, when we change, what we entertain our minds with. It's yet another symptom of our own masochism to say that we don't have a choice in the matter. And we do it because we love it. There's something fun in making problems for ourselves. There's something we keep returning to, whether it be because we feel we deserve it, that it gives our lives meaning, that it gives us human credibility for having been through something, anything. We want to create our own problems. So you can take it as it is or interpret it in your own way, but my own interpretation of that is sometimes the suffering that we are encountering is really just of our own making. Of course, this is not a generalization, but most of the time, when we have problems, it's really just because we cause our own problems. This next one is really simple, but I think it's really important. So I'm not going to expound on it, but rather I'm just going to read again another excerpt from the book that I mentioned. And this point is make time to do nothing. What we call doing nothing is actually crucial for our physiological selves and is essential to maintain a happy, peaceful, balanced lifestyle. The idea that we must always be doing something is completely cultural and completely unhealthy. Notice how we only feel we're doing something when that something can be externally measured by other people. When overworking is our identity, we lose track of who we actually are, and in the process, we stop living actual lives. There are many ways in which you can do that. It can be in a form of a day off, or maybe just a 15-minute to 20-minute break. It's up to you. Whatever time is available that's on your hands, take time to do nothing and just not think of anything, not think of work or any problems. One of the most important takeaways that you can probably get from this video or after this video is this item, which is don't wait to be motivated. And I have learned this the hard way. A lot of us would just say, I'm not motivated, I'm lazy to do it now, I need motivation, I need internal intervention. But the thing is, you don't need to wait to get motivated. You can always start now, even if things are tough. You just really have to suck it up sometimes, and you gotta do what you gotta do because, as you know, this is real life. Life doesn't wait for us. We have to take action and move forward to achieve our goals and our dreams, right? No, this is different from rushing. We are not rushing into doing something because there's really no other destination. We all know where we are going to be, right? We're not rushing, but instead we are like taking action right now. Like whatever we can do, whatever you can do to move the needle in your life, then you have to do it. Don't just wait there and wait for a sign. Okay, you have to do it right now, whatever it is that you need to do. And do you know why you should not wait to feel motivated? That is because motivation is very fleeting. It can be taken away immediately. One moment you're motivated, the next time you're not. So if you keep like waiting for motivation, then you'll probably not be able to finish what you need to finish. Don't wait to feel motivated or inspired before you act. Losers wait to feel motivated. People who never get anything done wait to feel inspired. Motivation and inspiration are not sustaining forces. They crop up once in a while and they're nice while they're present, but you can't expect to be able to summon them any given hour of the day. You must learn to work without them, to gather your strength from purpose, not passion. I want to end this episode with a thought. This is already 12:29 a.m. So this is a bonus for you. Sometimes the only problem with your life is the way you think about it. So in short, you have to change your mindset. Don't always think that there's nothing for you anymore, there's no job for you anymore, there's no money for you anymore. Adopt an abundance mindset and always have faith in what has not happened yet. Manifest it, be very clear about what you really want. I should have another video about manifestation and how it has worked so well for me. But the thing is, you have to have faith in the not seen yet. That thing that has not happened yet will definitely happen to you. But don't wait until it just happens, okay? You have to take action and work for it. So have that abundance and growth mindset. There is something for everyone, and you just have to believe it and work towards it. Thanks for tuning in to this podcast episode. Follow me on social media by checking out the links in the description box. See you in the next one.